Stop filming me and film that view over there. It feels like we're on a different planet. You can't convince me this is Earth.
And while we climb this mountain, I want to tell you guys about Shopify, a platform that makes starting a business incredibly easy. Shopify helped me turn my YouTube channel into a business, and they can do it for whatever you're passionate about.
Like climbing mountains.
Whew. If you've ever bought my merch or Feastables, you've used it.
And now that we climbed the mountain, we get to name it. I think we should name it Shopify, because to be honest, I couldn't have done it without Shopify.
We just conquered Shopify.
Hello everyone, once again from the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, and today we have a topic which is kind of related to what I'm doing, because I guess in many ways, since I've been living in Southeast Asia for the last nearly 7 months, I have been doing some tourism. Now, I wouldn't consider what I've been doing conventional tourism, like staying in a country by month, like living in the same apartment and stuff like that. But I have definitely done some more touristy things. And I actually really don't like the touristy things, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. But it seems the newest trend for, I don't know, travel influencers or just influencers in general is going to Antarctica. Now, the human race constantly just depresses me, because with something like Antarctica, we have this pretty uninhabited continent on the Earth, full of loads of really interesting animals and biodiversity and stuff like that. And of course, it makes total sense for scientists around the world to go there. And of course, it's like a collaborative thing with the international community. It kind of reminds me of the way the international community have kind of, tackled space travel and the collaboration in the International Space Station. It seems like on Earth, we just can't have a good thing for too long. And now we're having the rise of commercial tourism to Antarctica. And I really don't see the reasons why this exists, as we're going to talk about, because a lot of the people who run these cruises to the Antarctic, they say, well, they're raising awareness about global warming. They're raising awareness about the environment and stuff like that. So that's worth the trip. That's worth doing these trips. And these people can often pay up to $40,000 just for this one cruise, which lasts 2 weeks and stuff. And I'm thinking, are the people paying this much money to go to Antarctica as travel influencers the type of people who really care about the environment? Because if they cared about the environment so much, why would they just not go to Antarctica? And you guys might not know much about this. I admit, while researching this, it did really bring me back to A-level geography, just reading all about the animals there and the way the climate change is affecting the Antarctic. But also I want to talk about that Mr. Beast video, mainly because I was covering Mr. Beast recently and loads of people were saying, you have to watch his Antarctica video. And I was like, why do I have to watch this? But now I know why I have to watch this. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about that viral social media post that you guys might have seen, where someone whipped out the Rhodesian flag when they were doing one of these cruises to Antarctica. So I want to talk about that as well. Then I just want to talk about the environmental impact, and also how Antarctica could be a bit of a hotbed for geopolitical conflict, because Antarctica does have a lot of oil, and the main world powers, Russia, China, and the US, will probably have an interest in extracting some of that oil in the near future, which would of course lead to conflict and disastrous environmental impact. So we're going to be covering everything about that today. But before we go any further, please like the video, and in the comments let me know, do you know anyone who's gone to Antarctica, or do you plan on going yourself? I would be really interested to know how much it's actually cost, an average person. It really doesn't seem like something most people will be able to afford to do. Also, follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter, but also on Instagram. Instagram is where I'm posting all about my travels around Southeast Asia, and that is all archived in the highlight reels on my profile page. So if you care about any of that stuff, go check out the Instagram. Also, check out my Patreon page, where I have uploaded some travel content too. Got a third video recorded, just need to edit and upload that. I am super busy at the moment, so don't know when that's coming out. But also, you get access to the Discord server, and you get access to my Nintendo Switch friend codes. If you care about any of that stuff, check out the Patreon page, and also check out the subreddit, and check out my second channel. All of that stuff down in the description. So to start with, I just want to talk about how I became aware of this. So my girlfriend started showing me these TikToks about something called the Drake's Passage, which is part of the cruise to Antarctica. Some days it can be really clear and really nice, really sunny. Other days it's just some of the worst waves you've ever seen in your life. It looks pretty insane. These people can even survive going through here on these massive cruise ships. But yeah, I'm going to put some TikToks up on screen, and it's just pretty typical influencer stuff, girls looking off into the sunset with their boyfriends, people like waking up for breakfast on the balcony and stuff like that. I mean, it looks all very nice and stuff. I'm sure it is actually a very cool experience. But like I've been saying, I just don't really know why this exists in the first place when you have somewhere which has been so uninhabited by humans for basically its whole existence, and then you're threatening that with just these real like vanity tours of paying people to do this, to post it on their TikTok, to get more people to go. And it's just like an industry, isn't it? Like these cruise companies are taking like these more risky ventures because they want to make some money. And like I said, it is not cheap. I've seen prices of up to $40,000 for one cruise trip. And on that note, I just typed in like Antarctica cruise and I clicked on the first thing I found. So Antarctica Peninsula cruises. If you want to set foot on mainland Antarctica, feel the nip of cold air on your cheek, observe the hilarious antics of penguins, and explore some of the Antarctic's most beautiful spots, a peninsula cruise is the classic way to experience Antarctica. So this one is from $9,800 to $28,000, and it's between 12 and 13 days, and the itinerary is 5 full days in the Antarctic, 10 planned off-ship excursions, a very comfortable and elegant ship but with an adventurous heart, a class act at a very fair price. And then it just has like the itinerary of what you'll be doing. So it has the thing about the Drake's Passage, and it has the days 6 to 10 in Antarctica itself. So I just want to focus on this bit. So for your adventure in Antarctica, the expert expedition leader and captain will create a flexible itinerary based on the ever-changing weather and ice conditions, along with wildlife opportunities. You will explore spectacular bays, often filled with sculptural icebergs with a myriad hues of blue and white. On shore, you will always be on the lookout for Antarctica's most famous residents, the penguins. The most commonly seen are the distinctive Gentoo penguins. Out on the water, you will zodiac cruise on the hunt for seals, snoozing on the ice, and whales feeding on krill. Sometimes the ship's deck will be the best platform for exploring as you sail through jaw-dropping channels where glaciers pour down from the mountaintops and spill into the sea. Each day is different to the last. So like you've probably seen from the videos, it does sound like an absolutely amazing trip. You see the landscape there and imagine like how isolated you feel. I don't know about you guys, especially on my travels recently, I really don't like organized trips. Like I did an organized trip to Halong Bay, which is really famous in northern Vietnam, and I did an organized trip around some like Thai islands, and you guys might have done this as well, you know, Maya Bay, that famous beach from the beach. And I really hated it because I hate being funneled to like all these different places where you just like get off and you're told like, oh, go look around. And it just feels like people are just doing it because it's like the thing to do. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't particularly want to go to all these Thai beaches. I'd rather spend more time at like one or two than less time at like 10 different places. And when you actually get there, especially Maya Bay, it's absolutely rammed with people. The reason I went is because my girlfriend loves Danny Boyle's The Beach, so she's always wanted to go visit. But I'm just looking around when I'm there, and I'm like, these people like don't actually want to be at this specific location. They're here because it's like the thing to do, and you take pictures and you post it on TikTok, and you see loads of people doing that. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it feels like the problem with a lot of tourism these days. You just go to say you went, like you don't have a genuine interest in seeing these things. And that's kind of what it feels like with Antarctica. Like, yes, you need like a lot of money, but as we're going to get into, it just feels like the negatives on the environment far outweigh the positives. But let's have some fun first before we talk about like the serious issues of climate catastrophe. So this person, and I retweeted this at the time, a couple months ago now, they posted a picture of them, their mum and their dad maybe, whipping out a Rhodesian flag in Antarctica. So just newzimbabwe.com reporting, a tweet celebrating 3 white people holding a Rhodesian flag at Antarctica has shaken the social media platform Twitter, reaching over 2 million people, most of whom have described them as racist remnants. The tweet by Iris Victoria van der Westhuizen, daughter to a Rhodesian, has generated debate across the border, with some telling her that sharing this picture was celebration of a racist regime. Yeah, it absolutely was. And if you see her tweet, it says, Rhodesians conquered Antarctica this week, and obviously everyone was counting on them. I'm saying, can you please show me Rhodesia on a map? Imagine simping for an apartheid state founded by a mining company which died in 1980. Other people saying Rhodesian Zionists claiming Antarctica as theirs is just a little too on the nose. We're going to get into that Zionist point in a sec. Imagine Robert Mugabe kicking you out of his country so hard, but you go to the coldest place in the world and play pretend colonizer there. Zimbabweans have banished their colonizers to the frozen south. Inshallah, they will free soon. They're on a mission to try and find Rhodesia on a map. If we look at Iris's Twitter, apparently she resides in South Africa, which is, of course, where loads of Rhodesians fled after the fall of Rhodesia because they wanted to still live in an apartheid state and become part of this white ruling minority. On her actual Twitter page, you actually just see her posting loads of Zionist stuff as well. A fair number of white people dislike me because I'm Jewish, and also a fair number of black people dislike me because I'm white. I believe that it is overly cheap to hold someone else accountable for your own well-being. Then also just posting a picture of 2 Rhodesian soldiers. Also, fun fact, there were a fair few Rhodesians who actually fled to Israel and Australia as well. And I always find Rhodeboos so hilarious. Like, this person there wasn't even born in Rhodesia, it seems. Like, they were born after the fall of Rhodesia. Rhodesia did not exist in their lifetime, and they're still talking about Rhodesia. They're whipping out a Rhodesian flag. The only thing the Rhodesian flag represents is apartheid and racism, and Rhodesia's origins are being founded by like a mining company. Like, you can't get more racist than that. Celebrating an apartheid state founded by a European mining company in Africa, where like a 6% white population created a state just to benefit themselves. Of course, there's loads of parallels with South Africa, which these people deny. Going on a little tangent about Rhodesia, I've actually wanted to make a follow-up video because I made a video, and I know you probably weren't expecting the Rhodesian tangent when you clicked on an Antarctica video. I made a video like over a year ago about why people love Rhodesia, and although it was well received to start with, I've seen it being posted in like some racist Rhodesian Facebook groups. I get so many crazy comments on it now. I just love the picture of some massive Rhodeboo simp going to Antarctica with a Rhodesian flag just because they've been kicked out of their old colony. They're like trying to find a new one. But that is just a little tangent. I wanted to make like a whole video on that. I'm going to save more like Rhodeboo stuff for later. But on something that is, I guess, not linked to Rhodesia at all, we're talking about Mr. Beast's video in Antarctica. And like I said, lots of people were saying to me, you've got to watch this Mr. Beast video. You'll find a lot to criticize. And honestly, if Mr. Beast stuck to these types of videos, I wouldn't care so much. But we're going to talk about this video anyway. So he made a video talking about surviving 50 hours in Antarctica. And basically what the video shows him is him and a group of like 15 people, I think. Most of them like his friends and other influencers. They go and camp in a bit of Antarctica. And Mr. Beast and a couple other people do like a little hike up a mountain. And because a lot of Antarctica is uncharted, they say they can name the mountain. And of course, in typical Mr. Beast fashion, he plants a flag for the sponsor's video, Shopify, and names the like hill mountain the Shopify mountain. So let's take a look at this, talk about it, and mainly for me, what I want to talk about is just like the impact on the culture of making Antarctica look like a place that you should go for tourist reasons.
We just landed in Antarctica and we're gonna survive the next 50 hours here. We're literally at the bottom of the globe at the coldest place on Earth.
Can't wait to freeze to death.
And there goes the plane! All right, see you later. And now that that plane has left, boys, there's no way out for the next 50 hours. Stop filming me and film that view over there. It feels like we're on a different planet. You can't convince me this is Earth.
And while we climb this mountain, I want to tell you guys about Shopify, a platform that makes starting a business incredibly easy. Shopify helped me turn my YouTube channel into a business, and they can do it for whatever you're passionate about, like climbing mountains. Whew. If you've ever bought my merch or Feastables, you've used it.
Shopify powers businesses in 175 countries. Starting a business can be scary, kind of like climbing this mountain.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurship allows you to wake up every single day and do what you love, so the risk is worth it. And now that we climbed the mountain, we get to name it. I think we should name it Shopify, because to be honest, I couldn't have done it without Shopify.
We just conquered Shopify.
Go to shopify.com/behindbeast to watch my exclusive interview with Shopify. This is now Shopify Mountain. Also, you can't leave things behind, so I gotta take this flag down.
Extremely important to preserve the untouched beauty of Antarctica. We can't leave a single trace of our camp behind. So I made sure the boys packed up everything and put it back to the way it was.
Leave nothing behind on 3. 3.
Leave nothing behind.
But they were as exhausted as I was, so things didn't get done quickly.
I've got absolutely zero energy left.
On one hand, we have Rhodesians trying to colonize Antarctica for the dead state of Rhodesia, and then we have Mr. Beast colonizing Antarctica for capitalism and Shopify. Now, like I said, this video is like fairly interesting because, you know, I haven't seen many people do stuff like this. And he does touch on like you have to like clear up all your mess. But in that video, you get the vibe that these people could be quite forgetful maybe. Like they're having like a fun time, they're messing around for YouTube videos. And of course, what you don't see in the video is it's pretty obvious they have some sort of guides. People were probably experts at like camping and hiking this sort of terrain. The video makes it seem like they just dropped off Mr. Beast and his friends and hoped that they'd like survive on their own. I really don't think that is the case. But like I said, why I don't like this video specifically is because I think mainstreaming like Antarctica as a place to go for a lot of people, including influencers, I think it's a bad idea because it doesn't take much to upset the biodiversity there because it has been so untouched for a while. So if these people leave like litter, for example, that is not breaking down because it's so cold. And then it can actually interrupt wildlife. It can interrupt like a lot of things going on there. And I'm not saying Mr. Beast did this in the video, but if this becomes more popular, you see more YouTubers doing like sponsorship deals that will pay them to go there, or cruise lines paying them to like advertise it. You're going to see more like dumb young people going there, and they might not be that conscious, or they might not really care about the environment, and then they're just going to mess up Antarctica. And if you just get more and more people doing this, it's just not going to be a good thing for the future. Like I said, this isn't a criticism of Mr. Beast, although I do love criticizing Mr. Beast. It's more that I don't like this trend of these influencers you saw in the TikToks and videos like this of people going there, because I do think it's going to start creating trends, because Mr. Beast often inspires copycats of people who take what he does to a more like disgusting extreme. And I just hope that more people don't start doing stuff like this, because even though you can have guides who try and make you do it in a sustainable way, as we're going to start talking about, a lot of people think tourism to Antarctica is just not sustainable anyway for the environment, like it shouldn't be happening. But if we just culturally start accepting it more, I am like worried that it is just going to become a place where more people see it as normal to go. And then what's going to happen maybe in the future, we start actually getting like quite developed settlements. And then, as we're going to talk about at the end, with the geopolitical thing, if it becomes more normalized to like live in Antarctica for someone who isn't a scientist, does it become more normalized in the culture that global powers and the corporations they're in bed with are allowed to mine for iron, are allowed to drill for oil and fish even more there? Because that's what I'm worried about. While I was growing up, and I talked about doing geography at school, while you kind of knew there was like small amounts of tourism to Antarctica, you knew basically most people who lived there were scientists, literally just doing like scientific projects and stuff like that. So it felt like this place where people wouldn't go, and people wouldn't really have a desire to go. Like, why do you actually want to go there? Just to see penguins? But on that note, I want to talk about all the problems. I want to talk about the risks involved with tourism to Antarctica. And I got a couple articles to read and some expert quotes to read as well. And then we're going to talk about the geopolitics and like oil and things like that. So, Guide to Understanding the Harmful Impact of Tourism in Antarctica by Dr. Prem Jagyasi. So tourism in Antarctica is self-regulated by the AAATO, established in 1991 with 122 members as of now. The organization enforces strict guidelines to its tour operators and ships, limiting the size of ships and the number of travelers that can land on Antarctica at a given time. In terms of preservation of its pristine land, efforts by the IAATO have been successful till date, but the rising concerns pertaining to the tourist experience and preservation of the environment call for a cap on the number of visitors. So just listing a couple of the effects of tourism. So compared to a scientist spending most of their time on a permanent or semi-permanent base, a few hours spent by a tourist creates a much higher impact. Tourists are likely to explore the most beautiful and wildlife-infested areas of the continent with small boats. Therefore, most of the tourist landings concentrated on a small area, roughly 1% of the total mass, create a higher impact. Furthermore, cruise liners carry more tourists in a single voyage than those on expeditions. The harmful impact of tourism on Antarctica can be felt as the tourism season coincides with the breeding season. This creates a high possibility of disturbing the local fauna. Antarctica is home to 20 million breeding penguins. They may not get the right ambience for mating, which in the near future may threaten their existence on the planet. The heightened shipping activity of tour ships during the touring season creates greater possibilities of accidents and oil spills. There have been previous incidents of ships being grounded, leading to oil spills. Even with the best safeguards complying with the marine regulations for Antarctic ships, more the number of ships, greater would be the number of accidents. This is an interesting one I think no one really thinks about. So accidentally depositing invasive species on the pristine land. Another harmful impact of tourism on Antarctica is the accidental introduction of foreign invasive species like insects or seeds through clothes and boots in this unspoiled land. A high level of awareness exists where passengers are advised to vacuum their clothing and sterilize boots and waterproof jackets. Still, an accidental miss can endanger the environment. And just a Washington Post article back in 2020 about some of the problems it's already faced. Observers are less confident that rising tourist numbers are sustainable. The risks range from possible damage to sites that tourists visit to the potential growth in non-IAATO tour operators to ensuring visitor safety. Accidents are rare, but not unheard of. In November 2007, the MS Explorer, a Liberian-flagged vessel carrying about 100 passengers and 50 crew, cracked its hull on submerged ice, then started to take on water and list severely. Those aboard evacuated to lifeboats around 2:30 in the morning, then floated in the cold for more than 3 hours before another ship, the cruise liner Noordnoord, rescued them. No one was killed or injured, but that was in part because of the weather. Within 2 hours after the passenger and crew were aboard the Noordnoord, the weather conditions deteriorated with gale force winds. If the Noordnoord speed to the scene had been reduced due to rough sea conditions, there may have been fatalities from hypothermia. The environment didn't fare as well. The MS Explorer slipped beneath the waves, carrying more than 55,000 gallons of oil, lubricant, and petrol. 2 days later, an oil slick spread over an area of nearly 2 square miles near the site of the wreck. A Chilean naval ship passed through to try and speed up the dispersal of the fuel, but the report noted that the oil sheen was still visible more than a year later. As visitor numbers grow, so does the risk of an accident. And while all tour operators in the Antarctic are currently IAATO members or provisional members, a status that offers them a degree of support, there is no guarantee that companies new to the region will see the value in joining the organisation. If they decide to go it alone, there is nothing to stop them. Just a couple more quotes from a Guardian article I was reading from just a couple months ago. The continent's long history of evolutionary isolation means its biological diversity is much less than that of the Arctic, and Bergstrom says the expanding range of tourism offerings, from kayaking and snowshoeing to an annual marathon on King George Island, suggests tourism has gone from nature-based to ego-based tourism to test your testosterone in the Antarctic. Tourism is getting more and more extreme, she says, and on this scale, it is not sustainable. So I actually have a lot more quotes of experts saying like what a terrible idea, like all this tourism is now. And I think it touched on a lot of important points, like why are people running marathons in the Antarctic? Like it kind of just, flies in the face of a lot of people claiming we're doing this so we can educate the future generations about the environment. Then they're doing stupid stuff like canoeing, like kayaking, running marathons. And does that get even more extreme? Like they're saying, these regulations and rules, the membership of the IAATO, it's completely voluntary. No one has to do this. No one has to abide by this. There are no punishments if you don't do it. So what is really stopping another company, maybe somewhere that has experience of like driving boats through the Arctic perhaps, maybe like Russian companies or maybe like Canadian companies, what's stopping them from saying, yeah, we'll take you to the Antarctic. We know how to drive through ice and icy waters. We have the proper equipment. And no, we won't join this organization. We'll just do it and you can pay us all this money, because at the end of the day, as we've seen throughout history, capitalism does not care about the environment and everyone will develop these lands at the cost of the environment. Look what's happening to the Amazon rainforest right now. If there is a lucrative opportunity for a lot of these countries and a lot of these nations, do you not think they will take it up? Do you not think if there is like a rising demand for tourism to the Antarctic, they won't capitalize on this and they won't like flout the regulations, especially if they're voluntary? And like these people were saying, like they're advised to like vacuum their clothes and clean their clothes before they go there. But as we've seen with like the Mr. Beast video, imagine that times like, I don't know, thousands and thousands. Apparently it's like over 100,000 every single year and it's rising. Imagine all those people. You really think none of those people are either going to make a mistake or they actually just don't actually care about any of this stuff, so they're not going to take it seriously? Of course there's going to be loads of people like that. It all just points to the same thing, like why? Why is there one place on the earth that is relatively untouched by humans? One place we could leave alone, right? One place that doesn't need humans to live there. And there's loads of places actually that are quite like it. Like if you want like a snowy environment, if you want icebergs, if you want all this stuff, there are loads of countries you can just go to and have a similar experience. So why don't you do that? If you want to go hiking across like snow-topped mountains, there are so many countries you can do that. Why do you have to go to the Antarctic? And again, it's this influencer thing, and influencers sadly drive culture. So more people will see influencers doing it and think, well, I should do it. And like I said, if there's more competition, it will become cheaper. If there's more people not actually abiding by the IAATO regulations, there'll be so much more competition. And maybe one day it'll just be like a regular thing. And what it'll be like the Thai Islands. It'll be like, go to this spot, go to like this place with the penguins, go to this place with the seals, go to this place with the canoes, and we'll just destroy the environment. And that is kind of what happened even in Thailand, where I went, in Maya Bay. They had to close it for like 4 years because people just destroyed the environment doing tourism there. And that is what always happens with these places. And like I said, it's just depressing that influencers are making this more mainstream because they really, really don't seem to understand the environmental impacts of what they're doing or the cultural impacts of what they're doing. And people are already getting at, Antarctica is already under strain from global warming in general. And then, like I said, if we start normalizing the culture, it's a place you can travel, we're going to start normalizing it's a place you can mine and exploit for profit as well. So just kind of related. So Antarctic biodiversity increasingly under threat as human activity spreads across the continent. In a study published today in Nature, researchers found that people have accessed more than 2/3 of the continent, and the proportion of inviolated areas or places not impacted by people is shrinking. Only a small number of specially protected areas have been sanctioned under the Antarctic Treaty, and very few of those haven't suffered from some form of human impact. Climate change is compounding the threat of poor environmental protections on several fronts. Firstly, retreating ice sheets mean more exposed land and greater opportunity for pathogens to colonize, and warmer temperatures also mean species from more northern latitudes are likely to survive in the Antarctic. But there's another threat that the receding ice is posing as well. Early research stations would bury their waste as landfill rather than transporting it back home. That was okay as long as it remained frozen, but some of those landfill sites are in danger of thawing. Professor Robinson said that's one of the big concerns of climate change is when the permafrost melts as all this buried waste from the 1950s. So of course there are a lot of things impacting the Antarctic, from just humans going there, humans doing tourism there. But of course man-made, capitalism-made climate change is also destroying the Antarctic, as it is destroying a lot of the planet at the moment. That could spell disaster for the biodiversity there. And then of course when that's already happening, it's not helped by cruise ships and cruise companies really expanding how many voyages they're doing to the Antarctic. On that note, let's also talk about the resources there, because of course Antarctica, relatively untouched, but does have a lot of mineral wealth, and you can bet that the world powers are all rubbing their hands together thinking, how do I get a piece of that action? But just an article I was reading, Russia stokes political tensions with hunt for Antarctic oil. A Russian state geological surveyor shot 4,400 km of new seismic in the Rhodesian Sea off the coast of the Antarctica's Queen Maud Land earlier this year, it announced last week. The first seismic survey in the area by Russia since the late 1990s. They said the purpose was to assess the offshore oil and gas potential of the area using the latest technology. Unlike the Arctic, which is open to hydrocarbon exploration, the Antarctic mineral resources, including oil and gas, are protected by amendments to the 1959 Antarctic Treaty, to which Russia signed, with the treaty setting aside Antarctica for only non-military scientific research. Russia's admission that it is mapping fossil fuel deposits in the region will likely raise diplomatic and environmental heckles alike. The treaty's current protocol on environmental protection, Russia would be in a clear breach of the protocol if it followed up the seismic with any exploratory drilling. But in 2048, the ban on mineral activity comes up for possible renewal, plunging the future of the continent's ice-based resources into uncertainty. So the Atlantic isn't great, but this article had some interesting things about the geopolitics of the region. So the US has already been jostling with Russia and China in the Arctic for decades. General Charles Brown Jr., the commander of the Pacific Air Forces, who was recently nominated as Air Force Chief of Staff, said he thinks the Antarctic competition will soon resemble the United States rivalry with China and Russia in the North Pole. China, which joined the treaty in 1983, was worrying nations in Antarctica long before the world shut down. As a relative latecomer to the pact, Beijing has invested significantly in research and development of the continent, catching up and racing ahead of the original members such as the US and Australia. It has built 4 Antarctic stations in 30 years and has a 5th station near the Ross Sea that will become operable in 2022. Days before some countries reported cutbacks and delays to their Antarctic activity, activities, the Chinese company Shanghai Chong Marine Industry ordered the largest Antarctic krill fishing boat in the world to be completed by 2023. Krill, a small crustacean paramount to the diet of most Antarctic sea creatures and used as oil and feed in China, has experienced a significant population decline in recent years as an increase in krill fishing is a serious threat to the Antarctic ecosystem. It's also lucrative. While statistics on China's fishing initiatives are hard to find, the country's 2014 krill catch was worth approximately 10 million, and the krill oil market is expected to be worth more than 400 million by 2025. Last year, the Chinese government announced that it would distribute more than $850 million in subsidies to small companies to process krill products. So basically what it seems like is Antarctica will just be like the Arctic, with the main world powers all doing various different things in the region to the detriment of the environment and, of course, to the entire world. And that is just like capitalism for you in a nutshell, right? Like whether that's Chinese krill fishing, whether that is Russia exploring, potentially maybe drilling oil one day, whether that's the US interest in places like the Arctic and Antarctic, combined with the new tourism stuff, capitalism just cannot be satiated because people just always want more money. Nations want more money. Companies backed by various state governments, they want more money. And they won't stop. And I was saying to my girlfriend the other day, because we were talking about like the environment and stuff, and I was talking about like Jeff Bezos and this obsession of going to space. These capitalists do not think the world can be saved. They don't want the world to be saved. They want to exploit the world for as much profit as possible and then leave. That's what they see the world as. They don't see the world as something you should protect. They don't see the environment as something you should protect. It's not surprising that so many people in Silicon Valley are massive Ayn Rand simps. The same person who said the Native Americans in America deserve what happened to them because they weren't using their land for economic development, right? And that is the mindset of these people, this Randian mindset that the world and the land should be used for economic development at all costs. And that's it. This is why you see stuff across the world. The Amazon rainforest, like we know that is literally helping to destroy the planet, but people don't care. Bolsonaro didn't care. Lots of US-backed companies in the region don't care. As long as there's profit to be made, who cares about the environment? Who cares about animals? Who cares about the rest of us? As long as a couple people can make a load of money. And that is what is going to be happening in the Antarctic in the future, I feel, because once the genie is out of that lamp, I don't understand how you can put it back in, because already this is voluntary for people. Countries don't have to abide by these rules. Cruise ships do not have to abide by these rules. There's nothing stopping a company in the US, in Russia or China buying up some cruise ship which could handle these conditions and going there and doing what they want, because there is nothing enforced at the moment, and it feels like vultures circling the Antarctic. And like I said, more influencers go there, more tourists go there, maybe more settlements pop up, maybe we normalize it as a place to even live one day, and then countries like Russia, China, the US, all these other places, they see it as, well, there's people living there now, so these people, they need fuel for their vehicles, they need food, so we have to go there and we have to provide for them. And then before you know it, the Antarctic is just like an absolute hellhole. It's an absolute wasteland where anyone can do anything, because as we all know, if the world's most powerful countries decide it'll be okay, it will be okay. And it's just a depressing thing to think about. Also an interesting topic for me to cover just because I learned a lot. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.